I'm Ava Harrison, 29 years old, youngest of three siblings, and apparently the family's afterthought. Growing up, I was the quiet one. Ethan, my older brother, was the golden boy, captain of the football team, dad's pride and joy, the one groomed to carry on the Harrison name. Claire, our middle sister, was the social butterfly, adored by mom for her charm and elegance. Me, I was the nerd with ink-stained fingers and a fascination for design and strategy. Harrison Company wasn't just a family business to me, it was home. It was the smell of fresh leather and cologne in Dad's office, the clink of typewriters back when I was a kid sneaking into the office, the hum of creativity in every meeting room. While my siblings went off to parties, I was at the office learning marketing tricks, shadowing managers, and slowly becoming Dad's secret weapon. He never said it outright, but I knew he trusted me. When Dad got sick, I practically moved into the office. I ran campaigns, met with clients, and even cut my own salary to make sure the staff didn't lose their jobs. My siblings, meanwhile, breezed in for family dinners and photo ops. Still, I loved them, or at least I thought I did. I believed deep down that family meant loyalty, that all those nights I spent working late, all those sacrifices, would mean something. So when Dad passed, I didn't expect to inherit everything, but I expected something: recognition, respect, maybe even gratitude. Instead, I got nothing. No mention of me in his will, no thanks from my siblings, not even an acknowledgement of what I'd done. That day at the lawyer's office, something in me shifted. I wasn't going to beg for scraps anymore. I was going to take what I deserved. The lawyer's office smelled faintly of old books and stale coffee, and I sat there frozen as he read the will. To my beloved son Ethan, the family home. To my darling daughter Claire, my investments in jewelry. And then nothing. My name wasn't mentioned once, not a single asset, not even a letter. I felt every eye in that room glance at me like I was invisible. Mom smoothed her pearl necklace and offered me this pitying smile that made my stomach churn. Ethan smirked, actually smirked, like this was some kind of inside joke I wasn't privy to. Claire dabbed fake tears with a silk handkerchief, her diamond ring catching the light. I forced my voice to stay steady. Is that all? The lawyer cleared his throat. Your father's instructions were clear. I stared at the mahogany table, fighting the heat building behind my eyes. How could Dad do this to me after everything I'd done? Afterward, my siblings approached me in the hallway. You're not mad, are you, Ava? Claire asked sweetly. Dad wanted this, Ethan added. You know you're not really cut out for running a business. We're just looking out for you. Looking out for me. That phrase rang in my head like a slap. I left without saying a word. Outside, the sky was heavy with gray clouds, mirroring the weight in my chest. For the first time, I felt truly alone, not just ignored, betrayed. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop and stared at the glowing Harrison Company logo. This company was my life. I had built it up, held it together through crisis after crisis, and now, they thought I'd just fade quietly into the background. They underestimated me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying their smug faces, those condescending words, not cut out for running a business. My entire life had been about Harrison Company, and they had erased me like I was nothing. By sunrise, I had a plan. I knew things about the company my siblings didn't. Ethan loved to play CEO, but he never paid attention to the fine print. Claire cared more about brunch than balance sheets. They didn't know the company was struggling under their leadership. I did, because I'd been the one patching every hole in their sinking ship. So I started digging. I spent days combing through records, attending board meetings as a silent observer, listening more than speaking. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. Harrison Company wasn't just vulnerable. It was available. If I played this right, I could buy them out completely. I reached out to old contacts, clients I'd nurtured, mentors who respected me, investors who knew my work ethic. At first, I kept my voice calm, casual, just exploring some opportunities. But underneath, my blood boiled with determination. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Mr. Daniels, the company's largest investor. He leaned back, eyebrows raised. You want to buy Harrison Company? Yes, I said firmly. I kept this business alive, when no one else would. I know how to run it, and I refuse to let it collapse under their arrogance. He studied me for a moment, then smiled. I've been waiting for you to make this move. For the first time in weeks, I felt something crack through the numbness. Hope. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my worth, and I wasn't going to fail. The day I signed my first set of documents toward buying Harris & Cohn, my hands were trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. The papers felt heavier than they should have, each signature a silent rebellion against why. Years of being underestimated. I didn't tell anyone, not my friends, not even my boyfriend, Mark. This was mine, and I wasn't ready to hear, "Are you sure you can handle this?" again. But secrecy came with its own weight. Every time I saw Ethan post another smug LinkedIn update about driving innovation or Claire flaunt her businesswoman title at charity galas, I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. The hardest part was pretending. One evening, Mom invited me over for dinner. I sat across from Ethan and Claire, their laughter echoing through the dining room as if I wasn't there. "So," Claire said, swirling her wine, "you're, freelancing now? Must be nice not having to deal with real responsibilities." I forced a smile. "Yeah, something like that." Ethan smirked. "You were never really cut out for the company stuff. Dad knew that." Their words stung, but I stayed calm, because while they mocked me, I was already holding their future in my hands. A week later, I made my first major move, buying out a key supplier contract they relied on. The phone call was short, but when I hung up, my heart pounded with triumph, one step closer. That night, I stood in front of my mirror, staring at my reflection. My eyes looked sharper, colder. "You can do this," I whispered to myself. For the first time, I believed it. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was war. By the third week, my plan was in full swing. I had discreetly bought up shares through smaller investors, each transaction carefully hidden under shell LLCs I'd set up. Every signature, every quiet handshake brought me closer to complete control. Meanwhile, Ethan and Claire were blissfully unaware, too busy flaunting their inherited power to notice the cracks forming beneath their feet. I started hearing whispers. Employees I'd once mentored reached out. "Ava, things aren't the same without you," one said over coffee, her voice trembling. "We're losing clients, morale is low, Ethan's too aggressive, and Claire's never around." I offered her a reassuring smile. "Hang tight, change is coming." Behind the scenes, I pulled every string I had. Old colleagues vouched for me to the board. Investors aligned themselves with me quietly. The more I worked, the more I realized this wasn't just about vengeance. It was about protecting the company my father built. At a family dinner, the tension was palpable. Ethan ranted about a supplier screwing him over, while Claire blamed lazy employees for missed deadlines. I bit into my steak, hiding a smirk. "That supplier? Mine now." "You okay, Ava?" Mom asked suddenly, her eyes narrowing at me. I forced a smile. "Never better." Inside, my heart pounded. I was walking a razor's edge. If they discovered what I was doing too soon, it could all fall apart. But the thrill of holding this secret power, of quietly rewriting the narrative, was intoxicating. Every step brought me closer to the moment I'd been waiting for. The day they'd realize the little sister they ignored now owned everything they thought was theirs. And when that day came, I wouldn't just take the company, I'd take their pride with it. The shift started small. Ethan's confident tone in his LinkedIn post faltered, replaced with vague updates about temporary setbacks. Claire stopped bragging about her visionary leadership at events, her Instagram posts suddenly fewer, her smile strained. I heard through the grapevine that clients were pulling out of contracts left and right. One longtime partner, someone I'd spent months building a relationship with, had canceled a multi-million-dollar deal, citing poor management. At first, I stayed silent, observing their empire crumble from the sidelines, but then Ethan called me. "Ava," he said, voice sharp, "do you know anything about why our suppliers are suddenly demanding stricter terms, or why Daniels hasn't been returning my calls?" I swallowed a laugh. "No idea, Ethan. Maybe they just don't like how you run things." He cursed under his breath. "This is serious. The board's breathing down my neck. I can't get ahead of it." Sounds stressful, I replied smoothly. Good luck with that. That weekend, I visited Dad's grave. The autumn wind cut through my coat as I knelt beside his headstone. I hope you're watching, I whispered. I'm doing this for you, for the company. Back at my apartment, I received a text from Claire. We need to talk. Something's wrong. I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening. They were finally feeling the consequences. The same siblings who had dismissed me as weak and useless were now drowning. But this wasn't the time to gloat. Not yet. I needed them desperate, cornered. Because only when they were completely out of options would the reveal hit the hardest. I poured myself a glass of wine and smiled. The pieces were falling into place, and they didn't even know I was the one moving them. By the fourth week, Harrison Cumberbatch was hanging by a thread, and so were Ethan and Claire. I heard from an old colleague that Ethan had blown up in a board meeting, slamming his fist on the table as numbers plummeted. Claire, apparently, had stopped showing up altogether, preferring to drown her stress in expensive wine and Instagram filters. Their perfect image was cracking, and I was tightening the noose. I had secured 42% of the company through silent investors, enough to shake things, but not enough for full control. That's when I played my next card, a face-to-face with Mr. Daniels, the largest shareholder. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. You've been patient, he said. You're smart, Ava. Smarter than your siblings. But are you ready for the fallout? I nodded. This company deserves leadership, real leadership. I'm not afraid of fallout. He studied me for a long moment, then signed the final paperwork. With that, I became the majority shareholder of Harrison Co. I walked out of that office, feeling like the ground had shifted under my feet. I wasn't just reclaiming my place in the family business, I was rewriting my story entirely. The next family dinner was a circus. Ethan was pale, his phone buzzing nonstop. Claire sat in stony silence, arms crossed. Mom looked between them nervously. What's going on with you two? She asked. Nothing, Ethan snapped, shooting me a quick glare. Just business stress. I sipped my wine and smiled. I'm sure it'll all work out. They were suspicious, but I stayed calm. The next move would be public, and when it hit, they'd finally understand who really ran Harrison Co. The boardroom was buzzing with tension the morning of the quarterly meeting. I'd chosen this moment carefully, the perfect stage. Ethan sat at the head of the table trying to project authority, while Claire scrolled nervously rough her phone. The board members, however, looked restless, their eyes darting between papers and me. When the meeting began, Ethan launched into a speech about temporary setbacks and strategic pivots. But the murmurs around the table grew louder, and I saw sweat glistening at his temple. Before we continue, I interrupted, my voice calm but firm, there's been a change in leadership. The room went silent. Ethan froze mid-sentence. Claire's head snapped up. I pulled a folder from my bag and laid it flat on the table. As of last night, I own 62% of Harrison Company effective immediately. The board has voted to remove Ethan as acting CEO. The shock was palpable. Claire's mouth fell open. Ethan shot up from his chair, slamming his palms on the table. What the hell is this, Ava? I met his glare with steady eyes. It's business, Ethan. The same business you thought I wasn't cut out for. Gasps echoed around the room. Mr. Daniels cleared his throat. She's telling the truth. Ava's the majority shareholder now. The vote was unanimous. Ethan's face went red. Claire stammered, But this was ours. I leaned back in my chair, finally letting the calm satisfaction settle over me. It was never yours. It was Dad's. And now it's mine. You both treated me like I was nothing. I'm just making sure you remember who built this company. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice. The boardroom erupted into chaos. Ethan's voice cracked as he shouted, You can't do this. You're my little sister. Claire muttered something about calling lawyers, her perfectly manicured nails trembling as she clutched her phone. But it was too late. The contracts were signed. The votes had been cast. I already did, I said calmly, my voice cutting through their panic like glass. Mr. Daniels placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. It's over, son. Ava's earned this. She's been holding this company together while you were too busy posturing. Ethan's face turned ghostly pale. Claire burst into tears, mascara streaking down her cheeks. You're ruining everything, she cried. No, I said softly, almost gently. I'm saving everything. I looked around the room. meeting the eyes of every board member. This company is our father's legacy, and I won't let his name be dragged through the mud by arrogance and neglect. Effective immediately, I'll be taking over as CEO. Anyone who wants to walk away can do so now. No one moved, not a single person. Ethan sank back into his chair, defeated. Claire stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Mom didn't even call me that night. When the meeting ended, I walked through the halls of Harrison Company, my heels clicking against the polished floors. Employees peeked out of their offices, whispering. Some even smiled at me. For years I'd been invisible here, the quiet sister in the background. Now, the company bore my fingerprints, my vision, my fight. Standing in my father's old office, I ran my hand along his desk, remembering how he used to let me sit in his chair as a child. Guess I'm finally where I belong, I whispered. Owning Harrison Company wasn't about revenge anymore. Standing in my father's office, staring out at the city skyline, I finally understood what this moment meant. It wasn't about humiliating Ethan or PR, owing Claire wrong. It was about reclaiming my worth. For years, I let their words define me. I let my family treat me like a background character in my own life. But the truth, I'd been the backbone of this company all along. When I announced the leadership change publicly, there was backlash. Some accused me of betrayal, others quietly celebrated. Employees started stopping by my office, thanking me for bringing hope back to a company they thought was lost. That gratitude mattered more than any inheritance ever could. Mom eventually called, her voice small over the phone. Ava, your father would be proud. I didn't cry, though my throat tightened. I just whispered, I hope so. As for Ethan and Claire, they disappeared from the limelight, their reputations tarnished not by my actions, but by their own arrogance. We barely speak now, and maybe that's for the best. This whole experience taught me something I wish I'd learned sooner. You don't have to wait for validation from people who refuse to see your worth. You don't have to play small to keep the peace. Sometimes the only way to heal is to take back the power they stole from you. I didn't just buy the family business, I rebuilt myself. If you're out there feeling underestimated, overlooked, or unworthy, let this be your sign. You are allowed to fight for what you deserve. And sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's thriving so loudly that no one can ignore you again.